What if God never spoke to Abraham? No voice, no promise, no command to leave his home, no covenant, just silence. Imagine that. A man alone beneath 1,000 stars, searching for meaning, but the heavens never answer. Would he still believe? Would faith even exist if heaven stayed quiet? Long before Israel, before Moses, before the Bible itself, there was a man called Abram. He lived in a land filled with idols, statues made of gold and clay, gods that never breathed, never blinked, never spoke. Every family had one. Every home had a shrine. If your crops grew, you thanked your idol. If your child fell sick, you begged it to show mercy. But Abram was different. He couldn't stop looking at the sky. Every night, he stepped outside, looked up at the stars, and whispered, "Who are you?" No one taught him to ask that. Something inside him just knew there had to be more. Now imagine that same Abram waiting night after night for a voice, but hearing nothing. No angel, no dream, no promise, just the steady sound of his own breath and the endless silence of the desert wind. His father would laugh and say, "Son, you're chasing the wind. The gods we can see are the ones that answer." But Abram couldn't shake that feeling, that maybe beyond the stars, someone was watching. Years passed. The seasons came and went. The world worshipped stone, but Abram still believed in something he couldn't name. He prayed even though he'd never heard a reply. He built small altars, not to idols, but to the God he hoped existed. And though no one else understood him, he found peace in that search. Then the famine came. The rivers dried up, the animals died, the ground cracked beneath his feet. The people around him panicked. They ran to their idols, offered sacrifices, even burned what little they had left. But nothing changed. Abram stood there, dust on his face, eyes on the sky, and whispered, "If you're there, please, say something." Still, no sound. He could have stopped believing right then. He could have turned back, picked up an idol, and said, "Maybe this stone god listens better." But he didn't. Instead, he chose to trust in the silence. He chose to believe, not because of a promise, but because of a pull inside his heart. He helped the hungry. He shared his last bit of food. He protected strangers from thieves. No one told him to do those things. He simply believed goodness mattered, even if heaven stayed quiet. One night, as he sat by the fire, his wife Sarai said softly, "Maybe God isn't speaking because he doesn't need to. Maybe he wants to see what we'll do without his words." Abram looked at her and smiled. "I think he already knows," he said. "It's me who needs to learn." And for the first time, he realized something. Faith wasn't about hearing God's voice. It was about trusting his presence when you couldn't. Decades later, Abram was an old man, his beard white, his hands shaking. He had no prophecy, no great promise, just years of silence and the memory of his search. But he never lost his wonder. One night, he walked up a hill near his tent. The desert was still, the sky endless. He looked at the stars again, the same stars that he had looked at as a young man. He whispered, "I never heard you, but I always believed you were there." He smiled, tears running down his face, and though the world called him a fool, he died in peace. Because he learned that silence doesn't mean absence, it means trust. Maybe that's what God wanted all along. To see if a man would still choose faith even when faith cost him everything. Maybe the test wasn't about obedience, but about belief without proof. Because true faith isn't born in miracles. It's born in moments when nothing makes sense and you still choose to believe anyway. If God had never spoken to Abram, he might not have become the father of faith, but he would have still been a man of faith. Because belief doesn't start with God's voice. It starts with your heart's response to his silence. And maybe that's the message for us too. Sometimes God doesn't speak, not because he's gone, but because he's already said enough. Now he's waiting to see if we'll keep walking. So when heaven feels quiet and your prayers seem unanswered, remember Abraham's silence. Remember that faith doesn't begin with words. It begins with a whisper in your soul that refuses to die. Because maybe the greatest proof of faith isn't hearing God's voice, but believing He's still near, even when the world is silent. God's silence is not rejection, it's preparation. He doesn't always speak to be heard. Sometimes He stays quiet so your faith can speak louder.